Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Cartel Hour, where we do live tastings and discussions of all kinds of spirits with the people who make them, use them, and enjoy them. My name is Cameron Stevens.
And my name is Seth Benheim. Together, we're covering everything from familiar bottles to rare and exclusive releases from near and far away. If it's distilled, it's on the podcast.
Featured in Rolling Stone, GQ, Men's Journal, and more, we bring celebrity guests, master distillers, and industry veterans to chat about the latest in the spirits world. Buffalo Trace is one of the most recognized bourbon distilleries in the world, both in terms of age and quality of products. Hancock Lee and his brother Willis Lee followed the ancient buffalo crossings along the banks of the Kentucky River in Franklin County, and through these buffalo traces, found the limestone-rich water that would form the cornerstone of the distilling site where it stands today. Guys, this distillery produces some of the heavy hitters that we all know and love. Everything from the classic green label Buffalo Trace to the now coveted Blanton single barrel, and even the rare and celebrated Pappy Van Winkle line. On this show, we got to taste Old Charter, E.H. Taylor single barrel, Eagle Rare, two different Wellers, Antique 107 and Weller 12, Hancock's Reserve, Elmer T. Lee, Rock Hill Farms, and the extremely rare and coveted George T. Stagg. If it sounds like a staggering lineup, it was 9 whiskeys in total, so we had to bring in a few guests with the knowledge and palate to handle it all. First, we had Katy O'Donnell from Bond & Royal, a subsidiary of Sazerac, who owns and distributes Buffalo Trace. The Sazerac company purchased the distillery in 1992 and has been a huge part of continuing to keep the spirit of tradition and future innovation alive. Her historic knowledge contributed so much color to each bottle we drank. Also, we brought in Wen Ye, the owner of local Los Angeles whiskey bar Neat, and head bartender Arash Farzaneh. They opened Neat with an educational spirits experience that offers whiskey flights as well as converting customers to take their great whiskey neat. Guys, this is part 1 of a 2-part series on Buffalo Trace. We made it through a little over half of the lineup on this episode. Check in for part 2 for the rest of everything that we got to taste here with Buffalo Trace. We're here to learn a little bit and drink a little bit. So grab a glass and let's enjoy. Welcome back to the Infusory for another episode of the Cartel Hour. My name is Cameron Stevens.
My name is Seth Benheim.
And we have, we have a lot of guests here today. This is the most number of guests that we've ever had on the show. So
yes,
I'm
we
just
had to
gonna
pull
let everybody go and introduce themselves down the line.
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
we had to pull a microphone out of the graveyard for this and
Yeah,
electrical tape it to a tripod. So.
Because we are professionals.
Yes, the most professionals.
So yeah, we have some folks here from the Neat Bar here in Los Angeles, and we have somebody here from Bond & Royal. So why don't we just go down the line?
My name is Arash Farzaneh. I'm the GM of a Neat Bar in West LA.
My name is Wen Ye. I'm the owner of Neat.
Cool. And I am Katy O'Donnell. I work for Bond & Royal, which is the craft heritage portfolio that is a part of our parent company, Sazerac Spirits Company.
That's awesome. And Seth, what's bringing us together today?
Something that I think is on your shirt, Katy, is the
Yes.
Buffalo
Yes.
Trace portfolio, which is a portfolio of brands owned by Sazerac, the parent company of Bond & Royal, and one of the very popular lines of products sold and served at Neat. And I've had the pleasure of drinking with Arash at Neat and discovered this spot. But Neat, as the name infers, is very whiskey-centric. So I think that's sort of the allure here, is that we've got some really knowledgeable whiskey minds sitting around a table with some really good whiskey.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to, before we dive in, we have 9 whiskeys on the table, which is what an incredible lineup. But I'd like to hear a little bit about the story of Neat, and then I also would love to hear a little bit about like Bond & Royal as a portfolio as a whole. So
yeah, I don't think a lot of people know about Bond & Royal. So
why don't we start there?
Sure. So Bond & Royal started a couple years ago, and we were a really tiny portfolio. We weren't working on these amazing bourbons at that time. We were focusing very highly in agave spirits and liqueurs, bitters, things of that nature, things that live in your really niche craft we call them influential accounts. So bars similar to Neat that are able to educate the consumer about what is this thing that I would never know to buy at the liquor store, or what do I do when I want to entertain at home? What would you recommend, or when I want to impress my friends at a bar, that kind of stuff. So my portfolio lives in that world where it's very much we want our fellow industry professionals to engage and educate the consumer. So that's where we live. Bond & Royal has evolved. We now have 80 brands that are in our portfolio.
Wow.
Yeah, I started 3 years ago and we had 11.
Oh my
so
God.
the exponential growth is crazy, right? And it's really exciting. We work across, you name a category of alcohol, I can tell you a brand that I represent that lives in that category.
Wow.
Yes.
So really, we can cover the entire back bar of your home bar or of a really, really nice craft cocktail bar.
And do people just go to like bondandroyal.com to see sort of what is in the portfolio, what brands you guys all represent?
Yeah, we are a work in progress on our website at the moment.
Okay.
But there is the information that's out there, and Sazerac is the parent company, as I mentioned before. So you can find a lot of our. If you go to Sazerac and you're looking through Buffalo Trace Distillery, all of the agaves, those are the things that are going to sit in Bond & Royal.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll just throw this out there. I didn't see a work in progress version of the website. I thought it was actually really nice, and I saw one of my favorite aquavits.
Oh, it's up and running?
Yeah,
Okay.
well, to my knowledge, it is.
I need to go
I thought
check
it was
the
great.
website. Oh,
and
awesome.
I saw Aalborg Aquavit, which we chatted about before we started on the podcast. And yes, the range of different types of spirits is very, very wide. So. But yeah, as far as I can tell, I didn't see a work in progress website. So.
Okay, awesome.
Just
then
quickly,
head over
maybe
there.
throw out some of the brands
Yeah.
that come to your mind, like that
Sure.
people might know.
Top line popular brands, obviously Buffalo Trace Distillery, right up there. 1792 is our other bourbon
Got
that
it.
we represent. In the agave world, we have Siete Leguas, which is,
yep.
if you
Yeah.
live in Southern California, you have probably had it.
Yep.
Casa San Matias is another one that we work with. Los Vecinos Mezcal. We have Aalborg Aquavit. Glen Farkless is our single malt scotch that we work
Oh,
with.
yeah.
that one as well.
Yeah. a
105,
super-
that's my
We're-
jam.
We're
Yeah.
fans.
105 is my
105 is
favorite.
in there. We have the Bittermans line. We also work with some French spirits, Père Magloire Calvados, Augier, which is a cognac, and it goes on and on and on. So dive into the website for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely.
And then, guys, how about a little bit about Wen? Why don't you tell us a little bit about what inspired you guys to go and create Neat, where you created it, when you created it? Tell us about sort
Yeah,
of
tell
where
us the
this bar
story.
came from.
I mean, it's kind of a pipe dream. What guy didn't want to own a bar, right? Yeah. But it's mostly about learning to drink good spirits. A lot of people, it's all about education. Most people, when you go into say, oh, I like whiskey. Okay, whiskey is a broad category. You need to be a little bit more specific. Let's say like a Jameson or so. But they don't really even know that it's an Irish whiskey, right? And so I realized my love was for Scotch, but then I didn't really know that much about Scotch. So as I dug deeper, you start learning there's a lot more different categories about Scotch, and the same applies to any bourbons, rye, Japanese whiskeys. So it's all about education. And when we go to certain bars, the best experiences that we always had, other than the people that we go with, is that somebody is speaking to you from a very modest and just educational environment, just teaching you about it, as
Yeah.
opposed to being snobby, really just thumbing their nose at you. And so we learned from that, and we thought that was like the best environment to enjoy drinking if you're serious about drinking or you want to enjoy tasting and not just trying to get drunk, right? And so we went down that path with Scotch, with agave spirits, and Arash has been there like working with us on like just trying to find the best way of engaging our guests and talking about spirits. And what we focus on at Neat is all about the best in terms of quality, high quality, craft. Not necessarily like big name or expensive. You can spend a lot of money on specific spirits that are big name, but you don't necessarily need to spend all that money. You can spend a tenth of it on something just as good, but you just don't know about it.
Yeah.
And so we're all about the smaller craft producers, not necessarily just small craft, but quality. Really, that's really what it is.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of our job is really talking the guests down from their price points. which is kind of, you would think it's counterintuitive.
Sounds lucrative.
Yeah, exactly. Especially right now.
Here's $50. No.
No.
Give me 20.
Yeah, exactly.
Or get the hell out.
Absolutely. And it has become lucrative because, it's all about creating trust.
Of
and
course,
that's what
absolutely.
we have. We always have the trust of all of our guests because we talk them down. And then what ends up happening is they frequent the place more. And they're willing to try more because now we've built a rapport with them.
And I know you both kind of touched a little bit on that communication as a part of imparting knowledge. So how do you have that conversation without, making sure everybody learns enough but not feeling snobby? I feel like that's probably a really fine line, right?
It is, and you have to really tailor it to the individual. And I've had to change my verbiage often because it's very difficult because we don't carry a lot of big brands that most people would know. We have to have a conversation with every single guest. We don't carry Makers, we don't carry Jameson, we don't carry a lot of these other big brands. So people come in and they kind of look wild-eyed. So it really depends on the individual, and it is walking a fine line without insulting the person. Because someone will ask, can I have Makers? We don't have that. So when we recommend something, we have to be very careful with choosing our words, so as not to tell them your taste isn't great. It's just we don't have what you're looking for. We have something similar or something else. And I stopped saying we have something better because it just insinuates that you don't know what you're talking about, even though that's 90% of the case.
That's a good point.
Right.
But I don't. I stopped saying.
Let them say, actually, this is better.
Is right. Because I used to say, in my mind, if someone tells me, hey, I have something better for less of a price, I would like, that sounds amazing. But that is not the case for most people. They get offended because you're basically telling them you don't know what you're talking about. And they a lot of times don't, but you don't want to tell them that.
Especially in front of their Tinder dates.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, especially in front of No, we go straight for the, Hibiki 30-year with that, just to really make them look good.
That's awesome.
That's when you upsell.
We have an incredible lineup on the table in front of us.
Yeah, we're going to get into some Weller. We're going to, I'll just kind of run through what we're about to drink for those of you like, what the hell are these guys drinking?
Yeah.
We are drinking the number 8, not 8-year, number 8, which a lot of times when they get rid of those age statements, they'll add number 8 or, 10-star or something, which alludes to what it was, but no longer what it is. And as many people around the world or country, at least, have drank a fair amount of the good stuff and left the rest of us with nothing that are just discovering it in the last 3 to 5 years. We got to take what we can get. And the first glass here is actually going to be our Old Charter Yellow Label number 8, a Kentucky specialty. This is not something you're probably going to find in California. Is that right?
Yeah, I have never seen this bottle in California until today.
Have you had this, though?
I have not had this.
Okay, so we're giving the Sazerac. So there you go. And in fairness,
Seth has a tendency to do that. I mean, you saw the wall.
Yeah.
So occasionally he'll slip some things in where
no, but that's the fun part. I mean, what's the point of getting all together if we're just going to drink a bunch of stuff we already have had before?
I agree.
I had a small taste of this when I first bought it, but really I can't remember. So this is almost like tasting it new. And then from there we're going to go Old Taylor, Eagle Rare, Weller Antique, Weller 12, Rock Hill Farms. What is that one? Elmer T. Lee, and then we've got the Hancock's Reserve, and last but not least, the George T. Stagg.
What year is that George T. Stagg one?
I think that's 2019.
19.
Yes.
So it's a really, really healthy lineup. Some affordable stuff, some mid-range stuff, some really allocated, hard to find, and or overpriced stuff if you're buying it like secondary, so to speak. But it's a really nice kind of array that we're going to jump into, and we've omitted by choice the Blantons and the small batch E.H. Taylor, some Weller Green, the regular Buffalo Trace.
Talking about those.
We'll talk about them
within the scope of what
but why don't we start with this Ancient Age and go around? Guys, go ahead and nose that glass. Get right up in there and give it a taste. Tell me what you guys think.
What proof is the Old Charter at?
This is 40, right?
40%, 80 proof, guys. Now, Arash, I see you have it there in front of you. What is the? Is this the higher rye or the lower rye mash bill?
This one is the
lower rye.
This is the lower rye.
Should be mash number 1. Yeah.
Mash 1.
The Rock Hill Farm and the Blantons. That's
higher corn.
That's the higher
number
rye.
1. Higher corn.
So it's lower.
Interesting.
It's lower
For
rye.
higher corn, I would have expected a little sweeter on
It
this.
does have a rye vibe to it.
Yeah,
it does.
It does. And
For better or for worse, I do think that the heat on this is a little fumy for 40 proof.
It does. It tastes a little higher than
distracting.
But I think it's also because it's young.
Yeah. So what is the story in terms of it previously maybe being an 8-year product and now it's just number 8?
Number 8, yeah. You see the big 8 on the neck, and
exactly.
another 8. They kind of, I don't want to say they get you, but they sort of. I mean, it's like George Dickel does something similar with the number 8, number 12, where they're not actually 12-year or 8-year, but there is a lot of vanilla on that, like really vanilla out of the nose is what I'm getting.
We're gonna have to line up Old Charter, Ancient Age, and Benchmark together and see.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Benchmark?
Yeah.
Benchmark.
Benchmark number 8.
Yeah,
and again,
and
this is
Ancient
number 8.
Age,
Yeah.
10 star. Yeah,
Do an
I mean,
episode on things
even
that just have
Ancient
a number.
Age, even Ancient Age, I understand the 10 star is becoming hard to find. Just
Yeah.
a 10
I've
star.
never even seen that bottle.
Yeah, so now it's just Ancient Age 90 proof.
Yeah.
Is like the one bottle you can
I'd
find
be interested
virtually
in trying
everywhere.
that too.
So what's going to be the price on this Old Charter?
I got it for $16.
So so that's the thing. I mean, look, if you take a look at the bottle,
It's not
you,
terrible.
You know,
for
No, it
16.
isn't.
no, it's actually
For
quite good.
fantastic
That's
for
actually where I was
$16
going
bottle,
with this.
yeah.
For $16, because I always think back to our table bourbon episode. When you have anything under $20, I actually think this would hold its own just fine against plenty of those we had on the show.
What do you have you had this one?
I have not.
What are you thinking on this? Where are you
It's
at?
great. It's definitely a little bit younger on the nose, but it's very easy Drink. It's very soft on the palate.
Certainly sippable.
Yeah, it is. It's like you said, it's a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of caramel. I am also getting this just a tad bit of spice. I don't know if that's a little bit, of the alcohol content too in there. That being said, it's not anything that's you're going to run out and tell your friends about unless it's, hey, for this price point,
Right.
this is pretty damn good. So I don't know. I don't know about
At
you.
the
Said that
price
landing
point-
at like a B- ish.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
at a B-. In that, I would make a cocktail with this for sure.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't
Easy.
feel bad about that.
No.
Like there's whiskeys in this lineup that I have had that I would feel terrible adding something else to.
Right.
So
Yeah.
this is not one of those.
No.
Arash, what do you think of this?
I think it's great. I think it's a great, and to your point, I think it's a great cocktail whiskey as well. But it's definitely good enough to just sip. And the finish is I'm actually surprised about the finish because I would expect it, for being so young, to evaporate quite quickly. But it has a nice lingering finish as well. So I would absolutely B-, 100%. And for the price, it knocks it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a fun bottle. It's kind of a cool looking bottle, like of the ones on the table.
Yeah.
It's got a really
I've always
bold
liked the
label.
screw top bottles now. I don't
You
know
like
why.
screw top?
I do. It's
Nice
all
and
my
easy.
all
It's
my
just
Wellers
easy.
are screw top.
exactly.
So
It's
I have one of the bar top
Right.
antiques, Weller antiques, in the other room, but
Yeah.
this one, the screw top,
Well, and this
it
got
is
the
nice.
kind of old school vibe to it. I like the
Yes.
yellow. You do see a lot of just white labels when you're in this sort of vibe of branding, if you will, and,
Right.
and it does stand out in that sense. In terms of that yellow, it actually sort of harkens to the one we're about to drink next a little bit.
Yeah, and I like those yellows, especially when drinking a high corn whiskey. I like
Yeah,
that
for
yellow
sure.
corn.
It looks just like it's straight out of Kentucky.
Oh yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
You know,
for
it,
sure.
it's
It is.
classic. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But it's playing the part very, very well.
And I
Yes,
actually
it
feel
is.
Like it's one of those things where the folks in Kentucky that know this well, they've got a handful of bottles on hand at any given time because it's just for the price point. I would imagine
it's your everyday.
Easy.
This
Just
is your
easy
everyday.
to
I mean, they just
fire
have
up.
this available. I mean, I think a year ago or even a year and a half ago, you would probably find this at every store.
Right.
At every liquor store, either corner stores, the ones with like the bulletproof glass and stuff would have this. Even like this is not a very highly sought after until people couldn't find the other Buffalo Trace products, and they're resorting to even the bottom shelf brands that they're putting out under $20.
Yeah.
So
Still holding their own.
I'm sure
Yeah.
it's making their head spin because I'm sure they never anticipated it to become so coveted.
yeah,
You look at the packaging.
yeah.
And now they're like, you can't even find this thing.
It's not an expensive package. It's a
Yeah,
very,
yeah.
very basic bottle.
Yeah.
They recently did their first mini line extension on this brand.
They did?
Yeah.
What's
so
that
we're
one?
doing single wood projects with Old Charter now.
Single
amazing.
wood.
Yeah, so there's an Old Charter French oak that is the most recent, and there are some other ones coming up the line. Yeah.
Chinkapin, and there's a Mongolian
There's a
oak.
Mongolian oak.
Mongolian
What
oak.
what flavors might Mongolian oak have?
Part.
The Charter Oak, you mean that one, right?
Charter
I've
Oak,
seen that. Yeah, those are also really hard to find.
Yeah, they are. So it's interesting. But yeah, it's become this staple brand, but also given legs to experimentation, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, those bottles are certainly nicer looking. I've seen the Charter Oak brands. When, Arash, you guys want to give us a score of sorts, or?
I agree with your score. I would definitely go with a B-. B-, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's about right with
About
me,
right.
too.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair
All
enough.
right, well,
fair
we're
enough.
on to the next one, guys.
Boom. The Colonel.
Yeah, the Colonel, E.H. Taylor. This is the single barrel bottled and bond, not small batch, not the rye, not the barrel proof. This is the single barrel. I poured myself more than I think I should have.
Yeah, that's a healthy pour, Seth. You're going to get knocked out by... You've got 9
Glass
total,
3,
man.
I'm out.
Pace yourself.
Oh, the nose on that's
It's just
crazy.
It's just so different. The
God.
nose alone is so
It's
different.
just-
That's crazy.
This lovely caramel, marshmallow, little bit of oak.
Oh, yeah.
Like...
It's just a s'more in a glass.
S'mores. Oh, nice. The oak is so nice on that.
It
It's
is.
just
It's smooth, but it pops too. Like,
almost getting like cedar or something. Like,
I get a little cinnamony thing happening.
Yeah, I get that
A
too.
little cinnamon and graham cracker kind of.
There's definitely so many more layers to the nose on
yeah.
this one as compared to the last.
yeah,
which is really
I
cool.
think the extra age and the extra,
Proof.
cool thing about E.H. Taylor is they're all bottled and bond, so they're all 100 proof. So, and just a refresher, if this is your first whiskey episode of ours, bottled and bond, government regulated,
Right.
4 years minimum, always bottled at 100 proof. It doesn't mean it has to be 4 years. You can have a 20-year bottled and bond. People don't really do that. They usually get to that 4 year and get it in the bottle,
Right.
Because they can call it bottled in blonde, bottled in bond, not blonde. But
That's for another show.
yes, after hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're only on the second glass. This is going to get weird. So have you guys
don't
all
know,
had this one before, or
Yeah,
Oh,
we
yeah.
carry
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
you carry this one?
Fantastic.
My bias is showing. I mean, this is one of my favorite bourbons. Period.
What do-
Just the whole line.
What do customers say about this at the bar? Like, what are?
This is very underrated. Most guys don't know about this. They're always
About-
going for like the Blantons or like the Eagle
Yeah, about
Rare.
Colonel E.H. Taylor. in
Yeah.
general.
Yeah.
Of the entire Buffalo Trace collection, like the people who are in the know that are familiar with it, they know the other ones, right? But like generally, it would just be mostly Blantons and Eagle Rare.
And Eagle Rare, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
E.H. Taylor's not even in their vocabulary. They're not even familiar. But anytime we suggest it, I mean, Raj's done it plenty of times, and people are just like, "Wow,
Yeah.
how come I have never tried this before?"
Holy crap, man! That's
Yeah.
really, really nice.
And again, for the price point, I think, bourbon was always meant to be like a blue collar, every kind of man's, everyday sipper. I don't think, for the price point, the quality is phenomenal. And that's why I always end up gravitating towards most of the Buffalo Trace products because it's high quality for an affordable price point, generally speaking. The Wellers are starting to get up there, but E.H. Taylor, Eagle Rare, I don't know. I guess they're all becoming pretty coveted. So
Yeah.
How
Well, I
do
know
you-
this is jumping ahead a little bit, but the Eagle Rare, I feel like when I was a little bit younger, that was
Yeah.
always, if you just typed anywhere on the internet, best budget whiskeys.
Right.
It hit every single
Yeah.
list.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to get ahead of myself because we're not there yet, but I appreciate the fact that you guys are spreading the knowledge about this particular line because I do also feel like it's criminally underrated among the Buffalo Trace products.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
the Taylor. Yeah. So, how do you get someone to buy maybe like the single barrel E.H. Taylor from the small batch?
You basically, again, it's always tailored to the individual. So if they do like something a little higher proof, if they enjoy, that mash bill and they enjoy the flavors and they prefer something with a little more oomph, then I just, I spring the single barrel on them,
Do you guys do flights?
Yeah,
at the bar?
absolutely.
You guys
Yeah.
create flights? Mm-hmm.
Along those lines too, we go into another education, right? Talk about small batch versus single barrel, the difference between it, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And so single barrels are all individual. They don't taste. None of them taste the same, exactly the same. Even those they're made exactly the same, just two different barrels, right? So we explained that to them, and then like this is much more special. Once this is done, there's no more
Yeah.
of it at all.
Yeah.
So that kind of helps the upsell on that and makes people feel, oh, wow, I want to try that.
Right.
Katie, which of the E.H. Taylors, since we're going to move off of this in a second, like what's sort of your opinion on this line within the portfolio in terms of like, okay, I think they're getting crazy with Amaranth of the Gods, which is one of their expressions, or
the tornado seed.
Yeah. They got these like some crazy expressions they've come out with, and
yeah, well, my favorite that I've ever tasted is the 4-grain, so I fall into that. I like their experimentation. The culture at Buffalo Trace Distillery is that of experimentation. It will try everything, and if it fails, it fails, and if it's cool, it goes in a bottle. Yeah, our roots date back to the late 1700s. Buffalo Trace, the distillery, was named Buffalo Trace in 1999. Sazerac bought the distillery in 1992. So as its identity is now, and with the current culture, we're definitely more experimentation forward than others. But it's been in the history. It's been rooted in ever since. I mean, E.H. Taylor putting the Bottled and Bond Act together, so pushing the boundaries of whiskey from the start. And then you have George T. Stagg pushing the industrialization of the distillery, so adding steam heat to the warehouses, making metal warehouses. It's always been part of the culture, even though it's been in different hands throughout history.
Yeah. And that metal warehouse, that's like the one where everybody goes to for Blanton's, right? I mean, that's the thing, you know.
That's our big claim to fame over there, yeah. But the E.H. Taylor line, I agree with you all, it's super underrated. And I honestly think that there's an interesting kind of hesitance to the bottle, because it looks kind of intimidating compared to the other ones.
Absolutely.
Just as like a new
tall
consumer.
Yellow label
Yeah,
on
it
a
has
very
that
tall
tax.
Scotch bottle. It's almost a Scotch bottle.
Yeah,
It has that tax strip on the top, which
Says Colonel on it.
yeah,
It demands respect.
it does.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people, rather than asking the question of what is that, would just rather have something that they know.
They are familiar with.
Yeah.
So, but I'm telling you, that 4-grain, if you ever get your hands on it, go for it. I love that they're all bottled in bond, linking back to history. I'm a historical whiskey history nerd. I like that stuff. So that part's really cool.
Actually, did you say that E.H. Taylor, like, what did you say? Like, did he start the do you know anything about that story?
Yes.
And what? Yeah, please share.
Yes. Okay. So E.H. Taylor is considered one of the founding fathers of bourbon. And that is because prior to bourbon actually being a category, it was part of the whiskey category. Mm-hmm. And in 1897, E.H. Taylor was no longer running the distillery. He was actually the governor of Kentucky. And he put into place the first ever consumer protection law with whiskey, and that is the Bottled and Bond Act. So what was happening at the time was you were having all of these wholesalers who were receiving barrels of whiskey from the distilleries, and they were putting whatever they wanted into it and selling it, bottling and selling it.
Molasses and stuff.
like tar. Like they were putting in really bad stuff. And so people were getting pretty sick from these unregulated whiskeys, these adulterated whiskeys as they called them. And E.H. Taylor was not having that. So he took his political influence and wrote together the Bottled and Bond Act, which is it has to be made from one season, which means your grains can't get rotted and gross and moldy, so you're keeping it fresh.
Okay.
It needs to be aged for a minimum of 4 years in a bonded warehouse, which at the time was really specific because the federal government would keep a lock on the warehouse where it was being aged, so to regulate if any bottles came in or out without federal approval.
Oh, okay.
It needs to be bottled at 50% alcohol or 100 proof. And I believe did I call you?
I think
One state.
Those are
one
the
state. That's the last.
Oh,
two.
yeah.
It can't be whiskey from multiple states or multiple distilleries.
Multiple
it's one
distilleries.
distillery.
Yes. So
it has to stay in the state.
Distilled, barreled, and bottled at one location or one company.
I'm curious if you have any knowledge of why 100 proof, why 50%.
Well, my thought process on it is that similar to how you do imperial proofage with the British Royal Navy and how you would keep your sailors safe even though you're giving them a dram of rum or gin every day, is that you are confident that this whiskey has been distilled to a good proof, not too low, not too high, not including all of those other those negative conjugars that you have in your distillate cuts. So would be my guess. I'm not completely sure, but
Okay. Well, it's a good proof for me.
That's
I'll
definitely
say
the
that.
best description of Bottled and Bond and
Yeah.
piece of history I think
Yes.
we've had
That's-
about that yet. So thank you.
Yes,
You're welcome.
yes, no, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
You're welcome.
So let's give that a grade. The E.H. Taylor single barrel.
Yes.
Arash, why don't we start with you?
I'm going to go with a B+.
I'll say that's where I land on it as well. There are other E.H. Taylor offerings that I think I like better, which is because I think on the earlier show which one did we have on the very first episode?
Small batch.
Yeah,
Small
because
batch.
I gave that an A- because I loved that.
Because again, remember, Bottled and Bond doesn't mean it has to be single barrel. So you can
Right,
blend
right,
multiple
of course.
barrels together. So here the difference, as Wen was saying, was that this is a single barrel version of that versus the blend. And this is gonna sound weird, but I was at like a B+ on the small batch, and I do drink that one a lot more regularly than the single barrel. So single barrel, I'm kind of at a B because I just think the small batch is kind of, you get all the magic of all the good barrels, and the ones that maybe aren't as magical don't really weigh it down because it is blended. And in that sense, whether this single barrel is the best single barrel they've ever had or the worst single barrel they've had doesn't really, you don't know, because I'm not drinking from 6 different releases of this from 6 different barrels. So it's not, I don't really have that marker. So I just love that small batch.
Yeah.
And personally, for the challenge of finding single barrel and the availability of the small batch, I'm small batch all day. So I'm at a B on this, and
Yeah.
B+ ish, like high B+ on the small batch.
Yeah, and that's the exact same reason why I can't go too much higher than a B+ on this one in particular, because I love the small batch. So
Small
much.
batch is so good.
Very, very, very good.
Wen, what do you think?
I like this significantly more than the old charter, but it's still like a B+ area.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And just, I don't know if we said this actually on the show, but we weren't having Katy rate it because she works for Sazerac.
No,
We didn't want to get her in trouble.
We gave Katy the option if she would like to chime in. We're not.
You are
We're not
always
suppressing, but
When
Yeah.
we get to my favorite bottle, I'll let you know.
okay, there we go. I can
Got it.
appreciate that.
Gotcha.
I can
That'll be the
appreciate
point
that.
of reference for everything.
but you did say so. 4-grain E.H. Taylor is your favorite,
Of
and
the
the
E.H.
old
Taylor.
charter was interesting to try, having never tried it. And we'll
Yes.
Yeah.
we'll put a pin in that and go into Cam, your college
Yeah,
collegehood
this
favorite.
this was. I know. I think this was like early days of sort of reading. I actually did put together a small whiskey society in college, and Eagle Rare was one of those ones that, like I mentioned earlier, kept showing up on these lists of. Well, like, again, this was college. The budget was not big, so I was like, oh, this is fantastic. We can grab this, and it was kind of my first foray into much better whiskey, let's put it that way. And sadly, I haven't revisited it in a long time. It's become, it's become a little bit more difficult to find. Not necessarily always, but
Maybe
I'm
we're
looking forward
saying
to
that
this.
Eagle Rare just took home a slew of awards at a recent international spirits competition, and was awarded the best bourbon.
Yeah. Well,
so-
and it's just, you get that 10-year age statement at this price point, and people, their heads spin. They're like, how is that even possible?
Do you know what award show that was? Do you remember the name of it? International?
It was international.
International Whiskey Awards, something like that. Yeah, I read it was 7. It was Sazerac just took it home.
Cleaned up.
I feel like no one else applied to it, or you guys literally cleaned up.
on a lot.
It was like 1792.
We
and
have
this
an
and that.
incredible master blender who a lot of those awards should be attributed to. So
Harlan Wheatley.
Harlan's the master distiller.
Okay.
Yeah. No, the master blender. His name is Drew. See, he needs to be more famous.
Yeah, he should be on your shirt too.
He should be on my shirt.
Yeah.
He should have his own shirt.
Yeah.
For real, he should have his own shirt. This guy is incredible. So
Awesome.
Does Buffalo Trace have a different master blender than 1792, or do you guys ever share people?
there is a little bit of crossover, but 1792 operates a little bit differently. Just they have a little bit more hands on deck with the master distiller, I believe, in the final blending. Not to say that Buffalo Trace does not have hands-on with Harlan. Harlan's super hands-on. He runs the distillery. He's there every day. It's,
This one's a little more Christmassy for me.
Yeah, this is, to me, I get a little bit of graham cracker and dark chocolate kind of thing going on.
it's
It
even
doesn't hit you
sweeter.
with like the
Yeah.
marshmallowy
Right.
caramel. It is a little bit darker. I don't want to go into earthier because it's definitely not that, but it's
richer than the single barrel.
Yeah, it almost borderlines on a little bit of that kind of tobacco character that you can get sometimes, but it doesn't go full into that category. I mean, it's still has the sweeter backbone to everything.
What are you thinking, Wen?
I almost wish we had tried the small batch of the E.H. Taylor, since these are the same mash bills, closer in age too, because the Eagle Rare is 10. I don't know how old the E.H. Taylor small batch is. 6 to 7 years.
6 to 7.
So you can you get a better side by side comparison because the multiple barrels are blended together, so that you can get a more accurate gauge of them.
It's funny that the Eagle Rare is cheaper at a consistent 10-year than the age-stated E.H. Taylor small batch.
Yeah.
Why do they do that? Why is that? Is the packaging on it or the what?
I don't know. I would think because E.H. Taylor, as I mentioned, is a little bit more experimental, and Eagle Rare is, very established.
Yeah,
and
it's one thing that everybody knows.
Yeah, it's one thing. So we're not necessarily like, for example, with the 4-grain, like that was a whole different mash bill that we put together for that one release. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a little bit different. Whereas Eagle Rare is your mash bill number 1, 10 years we've been amping up production and putting barrels away for this for a long time. And so there's a lot, there's not a lot to go around, but there's definitely more.
It's going to be interesting in 5 or 10 years with all these distilleries, these big ones especially, that have the power to put away so much whiskey and let it sit and age and have the space for it. All the things that we're starting to see now at young ages, like, a 4-grain, or a quinoa whiskey,
right?
Like
4-grain or quinoa,
right? Like these weird, crazy ideas that people have had, but they're all like in the 1 to 2 year age range from these craft distilleries. Like, it's not going to be surprising to see the Buffalo Traces of the world, or the Heaven Hill, or who else is really big out there? Like Four Roses.
Beam.
Someone put away some like really experimental stuff and then let it go for 10 or 15 years. And they're like, we've got a 15-year-old 4-grain single barrel, bottled and bond. And we're like, what the hell? Like,
what is this?
Where did you get
and we're
this?
starting to see some of that stuff from like Wild Turkey and some other heritage, Kentucky bourbon lore, like, legacy brands. But it's, Buffalo Trace. I think like this, like the Charter Oak
project.
brand projects are a little bit of that. And I don't know what age range those get into, but
Yeah, they're going to all vary depending on the wood. Like, going back to that Mongolian wood thing.
That one sounds amazing.
It was an experiment, but Mongolian wood doesn't really make a good barrel. It leaked everywhere.
But similar to Mizunara.
The Japanese could have told them that.
Exactly.
The Mizunara.
I was going to
The
totally
Mizunara is
edit
like-
out the whole me asking about Mongolian barrels, but now that you came back to it, it's such a that has never come up before. But you said it just leaked.
Yeah, they had some issues with the makeup of the wood not being as conducive as white oak.
And
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is that similar to the wood that it's in Washington State? I forget the name of
Gariana.
the whiskey. Yes,
Yeah,
Gariana. I wonder if it's similar to, because I always associate Gariana as like our Mizunara oak for some reason, because I feel like
Probably
it
'cause
imparts
Nathan said
similar
that
it always imparts similar flavors for me.
I mean, I would be really interested to know what you guys think about the mouthfeel on this one, right? Because we got a much bigger age statement, and what are you guys' thoughts here?
For me, it's a little more, I don't know if gritty is the right descriptor for it, but for me, it's gritty. It's a little more gritty. It's a little more rough around the edges, but not necessarily in a bad way. It seems I keep maybe a little more unrefined than the Colonel E.H. Taylor single barrel, but some people really kind of lean towards that kind of mouthfeel anyway. So it's a little darker for me. It's a little richer.
Yeah, I agree completely. I always say I like to do Buffalo Trace and Eagle Rare next to each other. Fun little party game if you're out and you want to do something cool, because you get to see what 2 years extra in a barrel does.
And Buffalo Trace being the same mash bill and the same 8 years.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
you get to see that. It's really cool if you ever get to go to a distillery and taste, especially whiskey, taste from their new make and then taste every 2 years as they pull samples from the barrel. You'll find your personal sweet spot where you think that bourbon is the bourbon for me. And for me, it's always a 10-year. Like really
Oh, yeah.
across the board. Multiple distilleries I've tried this at, and it always sits right there at 10 years. So
Nice.
this is my baby.
So you like this one?
I like this one.
Yeah.
Nice.
What are your thoughts on this?
I love it. It's like would you say it's like grittier? It's for me. It's more. You just get more flavor, more depth into it because the longer aging. So you taste more of the complexity in there. There's just more layers of flavors that are coming through. Whereas other ones are just when they're kind of young, you just taste one very strong aspect of it. This you taste a little bit more spread out.
It's a little more stretched out.
Yeah, it's more stretched out. You can taste different things at different times of it.
I think that time in the barrel can generally, not always, but generally, depending on the spirit type and this and that, adds sort of a thickness versus a thinness that a young whiskey might
Yeah.
have.
More viscous.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I find this to be a little denser, a
Right.
little thicker than the E.H. Taylor. Not
Yeah.
to mean that it's better
No.
than the
Yeah.
single barrel,
No.
but there's
little
just a
more oily.
mouthfeel that's
Yeah.
kind of a little more filling for all the cracks
Yeah.
and crevices. Like really coats your mouth in a
More of a
oily,
roundness.
yeah.
Yeah.
way. And I also think it's got a little bit more of that. I find like some of those like Christmas spice flavors and
Yeah.
after dinner flavors. I would start my night with the Taylor line,
Absolutely.
like single or small batch, and then I'd finish my night with an Eagle Rare.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd start with the Eagle Rare. For that, I'm going to give it a B.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm at a B.
That's where I land as
but
well.
this is probably like an 87. No, is that a B plus?
That's a B plus.
Technically, that would be.
86. Sorry, I haven't been at school in a while. B, 86. 86 high B because this is a solid, always good 10-year-old bourbon. And you just see so much craft coming out at 2 to 5 years that would die if they could make something this good and get it out at even, double the price of this. They'd consider themselves lucky to have a product like that. So
Yeah, this is a B for me. It's a high B. It's a strong B.
86 or an 87?
I do think that what you are paying for is that really rich mouthfeel. I'm worried that it's not as balanced for me as the H. Taylor, and that's where it just somewhat falters. But you can't really say it's a falter at this price point. That's the issue with it. And so, yeah, again, I really, really like revisiting it. I think it's something that anybody that's had cheaper whiskey that's really getting that thin mouthfeel,
Right.
that wants something that's like, hey, what happens when you get the grip of that barrel? This is an absolute stunning example of it for a great price. So that's where it lands for me.
Yep.
All right, guys, Weller time.
Weller time.
Let's do it.
We're on row 2. Look at us. We're finally making it through here.
Guys, we're straight on through to the wheated whiskey from Buffalo Trace, the Weller line, and this is the Antique 107. We have skipped the green, the special reserve.
We did a feature Friday on it.
We did do a feature
Yeah.
Friday. Go to our Instagram. You can check out our thoughts on the Weller Special
Nice.
Reserve. But today we're going to jump right into some of the two more coveted of the Weller line. Now, there's actually a whole bunch more than what we've got here.
Yes.
But these are some of the classic widespread ones.
Yeah.
So,
Arash and Wen want us to shut up so they can start drinking
No,
their
no,
Weller.
I've already started drinking.
There you go.
taking a second to, I'm really stirring this. Maybe I didn't pour enough, but it's like trying to get the nose on it.
Well, I wouldn't say the bottle is within reach, but it's within a low amount of effort. How about that?
It's so much softer just coming out of that wheated mash bill right off the bat.
Yeah, sweeter on the nose.
Yep.
I'm a wheated bourbon freak. I would say it's my favorite style of bourbon.
And what do you like about it? Because obviously there is the sweeter. You guys both talked about liking the sweeter and having a little bit of a sweet tooth, but I feel like there's other aspects to it that is drawing you guys to this.
I don't know if this is particularly true, but I always feel that the wheated bourbons, for me, it's always it's a little more oily. The mouthfeel is a little nicer. And again, the sugar content, and usually for the finish for me, for wheated bourbons, I always feel like the finish is a little longer lasting. But that just might be subjective to my palate.
Well, it's such a grittier grain. I mean,
Yes.
we talked about grip on the last one,
Right.
but most of that's coming from the barrel.
Yeah.
This wheat in and of itself it's this flaky, cloudy grain too. You know.
It leaves a really nice aftertaste afterward. For me, the stuff that's tended to be a lot more rye forward or just straight up ryes don't necessarily leave, well, just personally, just doesn't leave a very nice flavor in the back of my mouth. But this always leaves like a very pleasant feeling of taste. It just stays, it lingers.
It does. It lingers.
Yeah, the finish is nuts.
Especially high proof.
Yes.
Yeah, 107. I think this part of this is that now we've gone over 100% finally, and we're dealing with something that. Now, Katy? What's the age on this 107? What are we dealing with?
They sit between 7 to 8 years.
7 to 8 years
for all the Wellers.
Nothing younger.
Yeah.
Nothing much older.
It's hard to go back to the Weller Special Reserve once you've had the antique.
Yes.
You know, but the Special Reserve is a great entry level bourbon. Weeded bourbon.
Sure.
You know, for people who are not haven't been socialized with it or haven't tasted it, I think it's a great way to get involved in bourbon.
So I'd be curious, Katy, if you have any knowledge of the history or story behind this particular line and kind of where it started and where it got to today.
Yeah, it is a story for sure. So you have the Stitzel-Weller distillery, which some people might have heard of, which kind of went, it kind of got lost during the 1980s vodka gin clear spirits craze. And so when that happened, Buffalo Trace Distillery ultimately picked up and started producing Weller with the weeded mash bill. Weller, Stitzel-Weller, they were back in the day, part of that wholesaler salesman kind of relationship or part of the industry. And then you also have, the extension of this line goes into the Van Winkle, which I think is also interesting because he was also a salesman and in that sales side of things. So this line to me is always interesting because I feel like it's kind of like a salesperson's line. But it's just a really approachable, beautiful bourbon that has been around for a really long time. It's changed where it's been produced, and we're really, really proud to be able to produce it true to its original fashion. It's so popular. This whiskey I get asked about more than anything right now, which is just...
And is it because of this secondary market popularity thing too, or...
It's interesting. So when this originally launched, the Midwest was really, really keen to it. They bought it. They really embraced the brand. They were really into it. So places, especially Texas, for example. If you go to Texas, there's a lot of Weller in Texas. There's a lot. And the reason for that is they were the first to really love it and embrace it. So when you increase your volume year over year as what you're producing and where you're going to send it, you're going to send it to the people who have been supporting you and who have been buying it. So California was late to the game. Really late to the game.
Fair enough.
And for how big of a population we have, it seems like we're not getting any whiskey, right? It seems like we're not getting any Weller.
Well, the other shitty part is that you go to Kentucky, you can't find Weller. Like, they don't give it to themselves. I found that by my third trip to Kentucky, I was just like, what's happening? What's going on here? Like, I'm very confused by the lack of self-love. It was like a hate crime against themselves to have these lack of their own good bourbons that you can find in... you can go to Oklahoma and get this stuff too, actually. Pretty common.
Yeah.
Which is pretty fascinating.
So it's been interesting. And then with the two new line releases that came out over the summer, our Full Proof and Single Barrel... It's just, it's gone through the roof. The fan level of Weller is really crazy. It's awesome. It's
cult-like. It's cult-like.
It's very
it is.
You mentioned that many times.
You've seen there's a Facebook group about Weller fanboys.
It gets to a point. I recommend everybody go online and try and find the Whiskey Advocate article on the secondary markets, which really explains sort of why, as you start to develop your bourbon passion, bourbon knowledge, and you jump on some Facebook groups or you follow overpriced bourbon Instagram or some of these things, you can, as you journey further and further down the rabbit hole, and then you get to this point where you realize that there are people out there that know the store managers. The stuff never hits the shelves. It's sitting in the back. They get text messages to come buy it because they're the favorite customer. And these guys are putting this stuff on like a Facebook marketplace and selling it before they've even picked it up.
Right.
It's already pre-sold. And they're flipping it 2, 3, 4 times what they pay for it. And so it gets to a really kind of crazy place. And, you know, it's lucky enough to kind of like pick up a few bottles here and there. But again, one thing to, you know, note is that there you can find it. This stuff is available on caskcartel.com. They do have all the Wellers. So if you or someone you know, you're really you're hell-bent on getting it, you can get it. You're going to pay a little more for it. You're not going to be disappointed. I mean, at the end of the day, is any $200 or $300 or $400 bottle really that much better, that much value better than, say, a $100 bottle or a $75 bottle? I mean, can you really...
That hasn't been my experience.
Yeah. I was going to ask. I mean, really, I personally don't spend more than $200 a bottle ever, period. But...
Yeah, I would never, you know, because to your point, I don't see it being life-changing for me.
I like this Weller we just drank, but I don't like it 17 times the price of, say, Ancient Age or something like that. So, you know, it's better. I'd pay double or triple. But, again, a lot of times it comes down to just, you know, if you're a collector or you're getting a gift or whatever. So, what were you going to say, Wen?
Well, part of the thing is, I think a lot of people realize if you pay attention to Pappy's 10, 12, 15, 20. 23 is its own beast. It's its own proof. But you look at the 10 and the 10 and the 15 are both 107 proof. Well, they're antique.
Same, yeah.
107.
The 12 and the 20 are both 90 proof. The reserve.
And same mash bill.
Same mash bill.
Same
so
exact
they're
mash
just
bill.
younger versions of the different Pappies.
Right.
Yeah.
So it makes sense for these people wanting to try this. Well, I mean,
but the
this
price
is just a
they
little bit
can't
younger.
get their hands on Pappy.
They just can't get their hands on Pappy.
That's what people are suggesting.
Funny.
It's
I love the Weller Pappy like whole thing. I mean, Pappy Van Winkle was a salesman for Weller, and now this whiskey that has been named after him is like highly coveted.
I wonder
well.
if these
It's
guys
crazy.
ever thought that they would be, you know, years and years and years after they've passed on, if people would be picking this stuff apart, you know, their
I don't think
history
so.
is. And I'm sure back in the day where they were just knocking on doors and being like, "Hey, I got some whiskey. I've heard it's pretty good. You want some?" Like,
Right? Someday there'll have to be a Katy O'Donnell whiskey.
Exactly.
I'm gonna have to
There you
hustle out
go.
my sales career.
there you go. There you go. Well, what are our thoughts on this one? I've finished mine. What are your thoughts?
I finished
Seth?
mine. I'm at an 89. This is probably one of the better wheat whiskeys I've had. I mean, the next closest thing I could think of that's wheated is maybe like Cask Strength Makers is pretty good for this similar retail price.
Larceny Barrel Proof.
What's
Have you
that?
tried Larceny?
Larceny Barrel Proof.
Larceny Barrel Proof Heaven Hill's another one. Those are wheated, and again, and Old Fitz, right?
Yeah,
Same
Old
family.
Fitz,
Old
yep.
Fitz. I have the Old Fitz 80 in the other room. You guys want to try that?
Yeah.
The like Kentucky one. And yeah, I mean, it's like Boone County does some wheated stuff as well. Actually, there's a lot of Kentucky wheated bourbons out there if you do your research, and this is probably, for that normal retail price, one of my favorites. I think 89. I've had the next one, so I know that I liked that one better. So I can't be giving this one a 95 if I know that one's better, because I don't give out A's
You're very
willy
stingy.
nilly. So this is an 89. This is just at the cusp of an
Yeah.
A for me. This is something I would drink often and regularly and just pour glasses of. I would even make cocktails with this. I'd make a Manhattan with this in a heartbeat. I think it has that really kind of like almost sherry note to it, which is
Right.
funny because there's no sherry, there's no wine finish, there's no secondary barrel. But I get like fruitier flavors next to those sweet
It would
notes.
pair well with the vermouth.
Yes, it
Yeah.
would. Better than the other three bourbons we had before this. in my
Absolutely. I
opinion.
think the other three would be great they would make me, especially the Eagle Rare, because it has that grittiness. It would go well with an old fashioned.
Yeah,
Right,
that one's so
right.
dense.
Yeah.
Yeah. When were you at with this one?
I was going to say B+, so
B+,
right
yeah.
next to you.
Yeah.
And Katie, where do you rank this in the Wellers you've had? I mean, everyone probably has their favorite, but
I mean, I love the 107. I'm with you on the 12, so
yeah. so-
anticipating that next pour.
yeah.
What is the proof on the next one? On
The
that
next
Weller
one's
12?
90.
Yeah.
90. Okay,
90.
so it's just okay.
Yeah, I think I wanted this to be higher than I have to give it. I think I think it's very good. I am with you, Seth. I don't think I would go chasing this at multipliers of its retail price. I think it's quite good if you can find it where it's at.
Yeah,
and if you like
if you're
sweeter,
completing the collection, maybe.
Yeah,
I could say go for it.
Right.
but I actually haven't had the Black Label Weller, so I'm looking forward
Arash
to
gave it to me one time.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing.
I drank this with you first, buddy.
I liked
love that.
but didn't love the Green Label Weller either. So I don't know. Maybe I'm less of a weeded bourbon guy. It's good. I mean, for me, it's like a low B+.
Yeah, I'm not a weeded guy per se myself.
Yeah.
I don't go crazy over it like most people
I mean, I
do.
try not to take into the whole like crazy secondary market. Everyone's hunting this down and selling it thing, but I kind of have to when I feel like it needs to kind of have that groundedness
Yes.
with it. So, but that being said, everyone seems to be looking forward to the next one. So let's get in there. Well, that wraps up part 1 of our 2-part series on Buffalo Trace. Tune in next time as we jump right into Weller 12 and finish with Hancock's Reserve, Elmer T. Lee, Rock Hill Farms, and the one you don't want to miss, George T. Stagg. Thanks for listening. Hello everyone, Cameron and Seth here. Just a few more things before we wrap up. First, you can always head on over to cartelhour.com for the show notes, which will include links to all the spirits mentioned and, of course, consumed on the podcast.
Absolutely. If you're interested in purchasing any of the spirits mentioned on the podcast, go ahead and click any of the links to be taken directly to those spirits or visit caskcartel.com. They are America's largest online premium spirits marketplace and have been featured in Rolling Stones magazine, Men's Journal, The Wall Street Journal, Forbes, MarketWatch, and many others.
Yeah, they are awesome and super mobile friendly too. They're a fantastic resource to search through different types of spirits, and their platform is easy and straightforward. If you don't love driving around to every single liquor store in town and hoping they have what you're looking for, Cask Cartel is certainly the best e-commerce spirits platform I've personally come across.
Couldn't agree more. And you can find them on social media at Cask Cartel, and you can find us at Cartel Hour for the podcast, where you can find information about upcoming episodes and live tastings at the Infusery.
And speaking of those live tastings, for those living in or visiting the Los Angeles area that are truly intrigued, if you want to drink along with us, we would love to have you come and enjoy an evening at the Infusery to drink through a carefully selected assortment of spirits.
We offer custom flights and have a robust library of over 700 spirits to choose from. Visit our website for more information on how to become a member of the Cartel Club.
And if you're a spirits brand that would like to be featured on the podcast, please email us or send us a direct message on Instagram.
Thank you everyone for listening, and remember to always drink responsibly
And in good company.